This is Jenny Kunkel, and in this video we are going to pick up where we left off in the last video, covering inner joins and using aliases to solve the problem that we had when we left off the last video. Now, the slide here is showing us that for every table, we can give it a more simplified term so that we don't have the table name in our column lists, in our where clauses, in our join statements repeated over and over and over. We can use some simplified naming convention. Like for our employees, we could use something like EMP, or we could use E. Typically, you use like the first letter of the table name, and if it's something where you have employees and employee territories and territories, then you would use E for employees, ET for employee territories, so using the first letter of each of the words for that table, and for territories it would just be T. So that's what we're going to be doing, and when we get to the second table, we'll just probably refer to it as R for reports to, indicating that that's the reporting structure, and the person that is the manager of the person that we're actually selecting the record for, which is the employee. So we can simplify it. We can use the optional as, or we can leave it out. Typically, queries, you leave it out, but we'll just put it in this week to show that that is an alias, just to remind ourselves of that fact. So let's go to fix up our query here. So now we're going to start by replacing the employees and put in the as E. Once I do that, you can see that it's going to start highlighting things for us to change. And we have on here our E that we want to change in our select list here. We also want to change it down here. And then down here we have the reports to. That's in our employee relation that we want to join to the employees table to pick up their manager. And that is the reports to from the employee table to the employee ID on the reporting structure. So this is going to be E for the reports to. Now you'll notice that we also have flagged the first name, last name, title, and reports to fields in our select list and in our order by clause. And this is because we have two tables that have these fields in them, and what fields are we actually going to be retrieving them from? In our case, all of these are going to be on the employee. We'll add some additional fields for our reporting in just a little bit when we get to that part. So we've fixed all of those issues. Come down here, I'm going to just make this very apparent with our E dot for our last name and our first name. So that's what we're ordering by. Now that I have those solved, I can come down to my employee territories, and this is going to be as ET, and it's going to highlight the instances. Since I've changed it out, I need to update the references. This is going to be et.territory ID, et.employee ID, and et.territory ID. Then coming down to my territories, and I should be consistent, and typically we don't leave the table name in everything. This is going to change it so that I need to change this to T as well. Then I have my employees, and I'm going to go ahead and make this an R. And this is going to be r.employee ID is going to be joined to the original employee's reports to field value. Now, we don't have any information for who the person reports to. So let's grab these fields. We'll change the references as soon as we copy them in, because we want to pick up the first name of the person that the employer reports to, their last name, and their title as well. Now, typically, we would probably also want to alias the fields here, and I can put in the as or leave it out. Maybe this is going to be the manager's first name, the manager's last name, and then the manager's title. When we run this, we should see that we have Stephen Buchanan reporting to Andrew Fuller, the Vice President of Sales. We still have all of our other information. We've just joined in our reporting instance, which is our employee table, to pick up who Stephen actually reports to, who Laura reports to, who Nancy reports to, and etc. So that's how we can do aliasing with our joins. Now, one of the other things that we want to talk about here is we should really be referencing every field in our select list with the table that it's referenced in. In our case, we only have one field that is not including a table reference, and that is for our territory description. And we're just going to add a T dot to that. If we re-execute it, it should have the same results coming back. The reason why I indicate that we should always reference our columns with what table that they are coming from is if somebody goes in and adds a column that is the same name as one of the other fields that we're selecting from our list to one of the other tables, we're going to have a conflict with our columns, and our query is going to bomb, our program's going to bomb, and it's just safer if we always indicate which table we're selecting the column from when we have a multi-table query that we're trying to execute. So that's the gist on that. Let's go back to the slides and take a look at our next slide. And this is going to be how we can fully qualify object names. When would we do a fully qualified object name? If we are developing systems for a company, and for instance, we have a general ledger system and we're developing it in a separate database than our production inventory systems, and we need to be able to look at something in the GL system in order to show the information on a screen in our production inventory system, we might have to use the fully qualified object name, which is the database, the schema, and the table in order to get the information from the GL system. Could be that that GL system is also a purchase system, and we still want to get that information, but we would have to use the fully qualified object name in order to do that with the database, the schema, and then the table. Again, there's a little bit more that goes into it. You have permissions, you have synonyms, etc. that could come into play. But for our query purposes, after that's all set up, all we would need to do is use the database name, the schema name, and then the table name. So let's go ahead and let's go back to our query window over here. And this is going against Northwinds. If I would happen to scroll up, I have a production.product table in the AdventureWorks. If I try to select something from the production.product table, notice that it's giving me an issue. It's showing me that it doesn't know what that is. It's invalid. Now, if I go ahead and I add AdventureWorks before that, and I think I'm going to type it out, it's going to resolve that table name, and I should be able to execute against that. Now, I can't join it into my query with Northwinds. It has really no data in common that I can actually select. It would make kind of gibberish nonsense if I tried to do that. So we're just kind of selecting it separate, but we saw how we were in the Northwinds instance. It only recognizes the tables in Northwinds, but in order to execute that AdventureWorks, then we have to put the AdventureWorks database name before the schema of production and the table, which is product. Now, the next slide that they show us just doesn't work. We have the ... If we come back in and try to use it with the partially qualified name, we'll see that it just doesn't work. I remove the production here. I have the same scenario, execute it, it just doesn't know what that is. So that's one slide to note that it just doesn't work the same as what they're indicating in the textbook. If we continue on, we see that we're beginning to add filter conditions to our join statements, and this is not typical. Now, the thing here that we can understand is here they're adding a filter condition to the join. I can also treat this as a filter condition using a where. I don't need to put it on the join condition. If I would put it on the join condition and execute it, I should get a very similar query execution plan than if I put it in the where condition and execute it from there. Typically, we see it in the where condition. That's more normal. That's more what people are accustomed to. And in our class, that's what we are going to abide by, is putting those filter conditions, all of them in the where condition and not on that actual join condition. Now, what does this look like if we were to do it on the join condition? Well, I have my employee table and I want to filter it by the reports to. So this is going to be and e.reports to. So this is what I would put as far as my filter condition in the where statement, equal to 2. So I'm going to filter and only return any record that has a reports to value of 2. So if I run this query, now I can see every employee that reports to Andrew Fuller. Now we can also come down and put it here. So we're going to place it here, and then we're going to comment it out above. Reports to equal to. Comment this out using our comment and run this. We should get the same results. Everybody that is reporting to Andrew Fuller. This is the place that we should be putting them. Even though you see it done here sometimes, it is much more acceptable to put it down here. Now moving on to the next slide. So they have another one. So this is just showing that second instance. And we've already looked at self-join. And the next slide, this is going to be the last one that we look at in this video. The next video, we'll take a look at Oracle. But in this case, this is going to be an implicit syntax for an inner join. This is pre-1992. This is not ANSI standard. Now you'll have databases that you can use this in. You can use it in Oracle. You can use it in SQL Server, but it's not guaranteed to work in all databases. And when we get into left and right and outer joins, full outer joins, it has issues with this implicit syntax. And we'll see what that looks like when we look at SQL Server and then also Oracle. I am going to get rid of this. We're going to use our query up here as a reference. And I'm going to start by copying the column list because that's going to stay the same. Put it down below. I'm also going to copy my where clause. I'm going to put it down a couple lines, making room for where we can fill in our from. And how this works is our from statement is just going to be a list of our tables. So we start with the DBO employees and copy it down here. This is going to be comma separated list of all of the tables. So I'm going to pick up the territories, copy that in, comma, pick up the territory, comma, and then get that second instance of our employee table as well. So now I have all of my tables. Now, if I would run it right now, that would be a really bad thing. And we'll talk about Cartesian joins in the next video. But the next thing that we want to do is all of our on conditions are going to end up being where conditions. So I'm going to copy this. And after my reports to equals 2, I'm going to add a condition and paste it in. So this is going to be how the employee table is joined to the employee territories on that field. And I'm going to copy this one down, paste it down here. And then we have just one more where we're getting that employee relationship and pasting that in. Now this is essentially the same query. If I run it, it should give me the same results as what we have. So this is the older pre-1992, and we are going to stop here for our inner joins, and we'll look at Oracle in the next video.